Okay guys, in this tutorial what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you how you can create a vector image of the logo that you've drawn. So in this case we've drawn a monster. So what we want to do first is we want to create a document. So we're going to go new, File, New. And then I think what's best is if we work with our settings over here on the right, we're going to change the width to 70 mils and the height to 70 millimeters as well. It's really important that when we're creating a design that's going to be laser cut, we open up the advanced settings here and we make sure that the color mode is on RGB. Sometimes it will be on CMYK. In the case of laser cutting, the laser cutter will read files that are RGB, so we need to make sure that RGB is selected. We're working at 70 by 70 millimeters because one of the parameters for this assignment is that the keyring or badge design, when it's printed, cannot exceed that size. So then we're going to hit OK, or create, sorry. All right, so here's our canvas. And I have shown you some shortcuts already. One of the shortcuts that's important to know is Control 0. Control 0, and I'm going to hit that now, Control and 0, will make sure that that whole canvas fits really nicely on your page. Let's go File and then Place, and we're going to place the drawing that we've already scanned. So I just need to find that in my files. Actually, I'll just go back. Here it is. And I've got my file there, Amoy's Monster, and I'm going to hit Place down the bottom. I've got a little shadow image of the scan there, so now if I just click it once, it'll drop that image. And as you can see, the image is quite big. This is really good because it means that the image that we work with is high resolution. What you'll see now is if I zoom in, and what I'm going to press to do that is Control plus, Control plus, Control plus, Control plus. If I want to navigate easily around the screen, one thing I can do is I can hit the space bar. When I do that, my cursor, my arrow here, or the selection tool, will change to a little hand. So I'll press the space bar now, and you can see that now because it's a hand, I can click and drag around the page. And what I wanted to show you is when I zoom in, my monster design is actually quite pixelated. So we're going to go through some steps now to change that into a vector. And your vector image is really, really smooth, which means that we can then make it into more of a graphic that can be applied to different products at different sizes. I want to be able to see everything now, so I'm going to press Control 0, which is that shortcut I was telling you about before. That fits my canvas nicely to the page, but now I have a problem. That image is still really big, so I'm going to press Control minus, and that's going to allow me to reduce my screen. So Control minus, I go over to the bottom corner. I'm going to make sure I'm on the Move tool or the Selection tool. So that's this black arrow on the top left corner here. When I want to shrink an image size or make it bigger, I always have to hold Shift before I do that. So holding Shift, click and drag, I'm going to make that image smaller so it fits on my canvas size. Now everything's really small, so I want to enlarge that again. I want it to fit to this screen really nicely. So rather than pressing Control plus and Control plus, I can just neatly press Control 0 and it fits really well on my screen. Okay, so we want to create a vector version of this image, making sure that my image is selected. So if I click off, it's obviously not selected. Hover over and make sure it is now selected. Come over to the bottom right here, making sure that properties is showing. Bottom right, and I'm going to hit image trace. I'd like you to select the default option. We're just going to press OK to this. It means that it might take a little bit longer because we're working with a large file size. That's okay. So it's going to process that. And this time when I zoom in, look how clean those lines are, which is really nice. So Control 0 again. And there's one last step that I need to do in order to finish off that image trace, and that's to press this button here on the bottom right, Expand. So now everything is highlighted in blue. And it's showing all of these little extra points. And they are anchor points. And they determine the shapes that we have. So Control 0. What I'd like you to do now is we're going to ungroup this image. You can see that there's an option for ungroup here on the right hand side, or while your image is selected, you can right click and press ungroup. What that allows us to do now is when I go to select something, it's actually going to let me select individual areas of that monster. This is really good because it means that when I'd like to start filling in color, it's going to make it easy. So what I would like you to do in order to set up our laser cut, the way the laser cutter works is anything that is black is going to become engraved. Anything that is red will be cut. And in the case of my little monster here, I'm going to turn him into a keyring. So I need it to cut all around that outside edge. What you'll notice is if I hover over the corner here or the edge of the image, you can see that blue box is highlighted. I would like you to click once. If we zoom in, we should find that actually it's not only just selected this outside corner here, but it's selected the outside edge of the monster as well. That's really good because we're going to change this line in a moment to become red. So that way it will cut around the edge of the monster. So now that is selected, I'd like you to go over to the right hand side. Again, it's under properties. And where it says stroke, this line is called the stroke. If we wanted to fill that whole shape, we would be looking at the fill settings here. So under stroke, I'd like you to click on that stroke color. At the moment, it's got nothing in it, no color. That's what this object here means. We're going to go over to the color mixer, pardon me, and we're just going to click somewhere along this scale, this K scale here. I need to change this to be in RGB mode. So I'd like you to click the 3 lines on the top right corner. There are options and change it to RGB. The correct RGB setting for red is R at 255, G at 0, and B at 0. So 25500, that's what it means by that code. So if I'm happy with that, I can click off. And now the next important thing is that we change the stroke size. Before we do the stroke size, I'd like you to notice if I was to click away, can you now see that we've got a red outline and we've also got a red outline around our monster? Whoopsie daisies. I just moved it by accident, so I'm going to press Control 0 to undo what I just did. All right, let's zoom out again. And I'm just going to click that line that we had selected before, and now I'm going to change the stroke size. So this is the tricky part because once we change the stroke size, you probably won't see it very easily. It's still there, and actually this is the exact settings that the laser cutter needs in order to cut your product. So if you don't change the stroke thickness, it will not cut. Here's the key number that you'll need to type in: 0.001 inch, which is IN. Now when I hit enter, that number is going to change. That number changes to 0.072 points. I find that remembering 0.001 inch is a bit easier, but you could just type in 0.072 point, and that would be the same thing. So now you can kind of see that line. It's very thin, but you can no longer see it around that monster. It's still there. It's just that we can't see it because it's so thin and it's right next to the black. So we now have our little monster ready to be engraved where it's all black, and anywhere where that red line is, which is around the edge and also around the edge of the monster, will also cut. That's great news for us. We actually don't really need that rectangle there to be cut because that's all just wasted plywood or acrylic or whatever material is going to be cut. We could cut only right around the edge of the monster. So to get rid of that rectangle without getting rid of everything around the monster, you're going to come over to the direct selection tool. And if you click on that top left corner, see how now it's saying anchor? I'm going to zoom in so you can see it a bit easier on the video. It says anchor there. I'm going to click on the anchor point and it's blue now. And I should find that all the other anchor points, if I zoom in a bit more, I'm going to drag across so you can see. Whoops. They're white. It's a bit hard probably to see in the video, but they're a white anchor point. So what it means is now it's just selected that area of the box. So I'm going to hit backspace or delete, and now it's just deleted that area. And I only want to delete this part here now as well. So I'm going to hit backspace again. So now I have my monster that's black with a red outline and no box around it anymore. If I zoom in lots, we might just be able to see that red line still there. We can. You see that? There's still a red line going around everything. So if you're unsure, just click Control plus lots of times so you can check. All right, click Control 0 now and we can see everything again. We're going to go back over to our selection tool. And I'd just like to explain a couple more things and then your design will be ready to be laser cut. Before it can be laser cut, I need to add in a hole so that when I would like to thread through my keyring into that little laser cut pendant, there's something to thread it through. So over on the left hand side is my rectangle tool. I'm going to click and hold that and I'm going to choose the ellipse tool. To create a circle, we need to hold the shift bar. So hold shift, click and drag, and we have our little circle. Control 0. Go back over to the move tool, the selection tool, and now I can move that wherever I want. And click off. Because I was working on the red settings already, that circle has been drawn automatically in red with the stroke thickness, I'll check it over here, at 0.072 point or 0.001 inch. That's great. If for some reason it hasn't worked on those settings for you, if it's done something different, you need to go over to the stroke and make sure it's at 25500 and then write the correct settings in here for the stroke thickness, 0.072 point. Okay, I'd like to show you a couple of other things. Let's get rid of that. If I wanted my circle at an exact measurement, this is why Adobe Illustrator is wonderful. It works on a point system and it's very mathematical. So I can click back over on my ellipse tool and I can actually click once on the artboard. So I just clicked once and now I can type in the exact measurements I want. So let's say, for instance, I want it to be 5 millimeters in diameter. So that means my width and my height are both going to be 5 millimeters. And I can even click this option here so it's constrained. Then if I choose to maybe to change that to 6, they both automatically change to 6. So I'll hit 5 on both and press OK. And here's my little circle. I'm going to go back to my selection tool. We can start learning some of the shortcuts for each of these tools and you'll see them in brackets when you hover over the tool itself. So if you're always going back to selection tool, you can see that the shortcut is V. So I could just start typing in the letter V when I'm ready to move something and then it will automatically select that for me. So now I have my monster who's ready to be cut out around the edges and he's also going to get a nice little circle there cut out in this head. It's very important that you place that hole wisely. If I put it right up here, it's really close to the edge and that's going to make it a bit fragile. So by placing it more in the center and a little bit lower, it means that it's going to be reinforced by that material and it's probably going to last a bit longer. Just lastly, you might find that you want to fill some of your shapes with black so that it engraves them into a nice dark brown. And because our shape or our monster has been ungrouped, we can click on individual areas. So I might find that I actually want all of those dots to be engraved. And if I'm engraving on plywood, it means that they'll turn to a nice dark brown. So I can open up my color mixer here and I can just move that all the way up to black. I can just come in here. I'm going to zoom in a bit, and I'm going to select these and change them to black. I've even got a black down here. I can just start to click really quickly. So I click on it, on the shape, and then I fill it with black. I'm on the fill here. Now I could even do that quicker. If I click a shape and then I press Control and I press Shift and I hold Alt all at the same time, I should be able to start to select multiple shapes. I'm going to keep coming around, and when I let go, you can see that all those shapes are selected at once. So I'm going to hold Shift, Alt, and Control at the same time, and I'm going to continue to click, 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 and they're all selected at once. So now I can go over to Fill, and I can choose black, and they fill really quickly. I'll just choose a couple more over here. I think that's all of them. And then I'll go to Fill, black. Oh, I missed one little one here. I'll just click off, click in that middle one there, Fill, and black. So everything's black and white in this version, and that's okay. We're going to have a play in our next video with adding some colour to a different version, and that will be fun. So you'll see one version here is created as a laser cut, ready to be engraved. I'm even just going to add a bit more black up here because I think that could look kind of cool. Ready to be engraved and cut, and then we're going to do a different graphic version. All right, here's my groovy little monster. I'm going to save that. So I need to go File, Save. I'm going to find a place in on my computer files where I can save that. So I'm actually going to make a folder and say File. I right-clicked here. I went New and Folder. And I'm going to call this Year 9 Art. And from here on, everything I save for this project is going to go into that folder. And I'm going to save this as Amoy's Monster Laser Cut. Okay, so it's ready to be laser cut. And I'm going to hit save. It's already got the save as type as Adobe Illustrator, so that's really good. Save, and I'm going to press OK. And that is ready to be laser cut. That's my first video for you. The next video is going to go through how to add color gradients and patterns.